Because I'm a marketing genius and always on the pulse of making videos when it's the right time to do it for peak popularity and reach, it's time to celebrate the DBD chapter that came out on June 3rd, 2024. Oh. So anyway, as always, I know nothing about D&D, but like all white men with nothing to say, I do have a podcast, but I'll plug that later. Unfortunately, I do know about Dead by Daylight. If you don't, here's the rundown. You and three people who want nothing more than to leave the game as soon as you can play hide and seek against a bunch of licensed and original killers. Last one to uninstall the game wins. Also, why didn't they make skins from this? This is a license to print money from the over 40 demographic. So I hope that's cleared it all up. Anyway, apart from making this video a year ago when people might have actually stumbled onto it, how am I going to tie this all up? Well...
Alright, mad about covers it.
Cost me 40 grand, that did. Still better than AI. Anyway, first up is Dwight, and I thought I should get some expert advice. So I asked posh British TikTok man, professional nerd emote, and all-round good egg Slate from Twitch his thoughts on this.
Slate, what D&D class would Dwight play as? Dwight would be one of those little 1 HP battle filler dorks.
So that's the answer. But I have to pad this video out, so I should probably add a bit more. Dwight is apparently all about the teamwork and reluctant leadership, which is odd because I only ever see the little fucker when he was getting out of a lockout or body blocking me dressed as a stupid elf thing. He is everyone's first ever main for some reason before they move on to greener pastures and has more new skins than a snake with sunburn. He looks like a young Roland Rivron. That's a reference for all the youngsters watching. Anyway, I think the specky little twat was play as a gnome. Makes it easier for him to hide from the gens, but also easier for me to toe punt him into the shack wall. Next up is Haddie. For full transparency, Haddie is my main and the best survivor. Anybody who disagrees with me is wrong and smells, and I will fight you. Haddie was already a monster hunter and puncher of the unnatural even before the entity took her, and she continues to headbutt them in the realm. She is basically hard as fuck. According to the law, she is a brave and determined podcaster, just like me, and able to see things of great suffering, just like me with a mirror. Her perks are pretty shit, and she didn't get much in the way of good skins, but you know what? She's bloody great anyway. Leave Haddie alone. I reckon she would play as a druid with all her magic brain stuff and ability to twat a monster around the chops. Third is David. David is alright for a rugby player from Manchester, a sport and a place I dislike, I suppose, and he's hard as all fuck. I will never understand why in this game that David, a trained boxer and general punchy bloke, does not simply backhand Legion round the chops. But Legion is a killer. I don't care, mate. Legion is just some kids after gobbing down a bag of Haribo running about with a butter knife, and David will smack the spit out of all their mouths. Same with Blight. Oh, watch out, a scabby old man with a stick. Actually, and Ghostface as well. Didn't Monica from Friends beat him in 47 of the Scream films? And Trickster. Chucky would get hoofed over the wall as well. Anyway, the point is David is pretty tough, and I have no idea why the game doesn't let us give the killers a kicking. I would happily use him to stove in that FNAF piss robot's face and watch the fan base cry in endgame chat. To be fair, David's great, and as on the nose as this is, he would play D&D as the fighter class to get out the frustration of the entity stopping him from being able to just simply headbutt Wesker. Ace Visconti is a smug prick. I hate looking at his stupid face, and whilst as a killer I don't tunnel, if I see an ace, I'm going for the ace. He was introduced with a hag, which is fitting, because she likes playing in the mud, and I would like to see him under 6 foot of mud. In-game, for legal reasons. In-game. His perks are bad, and he should feel bad about it, and his skins stink. He wouldn't play D&D because nobody wants to play with him because he cheats. Claudette is another OG. As a healer, she loves the plants and trees and yous and me's. Another one that got a bit lazy with the lore with she went in the woods and that's really it. The lore also says she loves an online chat room and forum, so I can only imagine she was sucked up the entity's hole before Twitter was a thing, which is for the best. As she's been painted as the survivor's healer, her perks do exactly that, and they're fine. Although watching someone take 20 minutes to self-care in the corner of a map whilst you're on a hook is enough to make anybody go next. She would play D&D as a cleric, so she can hang at the back and get those heals in. Bung is an esports champ, which means she would never play DBD. The comp DBD scene is a cesspool of wrong-uns, and that's my hot take on that. She is, according to the law, more driven than a replacement bus service and more efficient than a German car. Her backstory is pretty shallow and paints her as Asmongold with a shower and a mop, so not much for me to go on. She had some decent skins and perks, and frankly everyone loves a bit of life action. She would play D&D as an artificer. Probably, I don't know. Jake is the anti-Nepo baby, so he's fine by me. The law said his dad was loaded, but he wasn't about that life, so he fucked off to live in a cabin. The third in a row that apparently just went for a mooch in the forest and disappeared. At this point, the police probably should just arrest Yogi Bear, or the devs weren't getting paid overtime. Jake is what you'd expect Jeff to be from appearance, a rugged outdoors guy running about covered in mud trying to escape the predator or something. His perks are okay, and you can really have a daft laugh with Saboteur. They do seem to dump some of the best and worst skins on poor Jake, like a shit Mr. Ben. Ask your parents about Mr. Ben. I would say he would play as a paladin. No reason other than we have more survivors than classes, so they ain't all going to fit. Get over yourself, mate. This ain't the place for D&D accuracy, is it? Jeff is a big scary goth, but like all fans of Cannibal Corpse, when he isn't shouting about electrocuting the elderly, he is a sweetheart. He is Canadian, so impeccably polite, and lived in a place called Winkler, which I refuse to believe is real. He was introduced with the Legion, which, same as David, I see as a bit of a mismatch. A big lad who has spent some time in a pit, I reckon could easily hold his own against some tweens. His perks are alright, I suppose, and he has some decent skins, a good all-rounder in the trials and a nice lad. He just wants to doodle and listen to Slayer. He would play as a bard who solely does Dillinger Escape Plan songs, and we all have to wait whilst he works out the time signatures, extending the games by hours. Meg is a smart ass. Nobody plays as Meg unless they really want to grind the killer into the muck. She is super clever and super fast. She is what would happen if you give Einstein Heelys. Being one of the OGs of the game has left her with more clothes that you'll never wear than a jumble sale in a Primark warehouse, and possibly the best individual perk set in the game if you know how and when to use them. What I am essentially saying is if you load into a lobby against 4 megs, you're about to have the best or worst game of your life. She will play D&D as a monk, not due to any holy calling, just because Google told me they were the fastest class, and that's about as much research as I could be bothered to do. I bet he's going to say that Nia is the entity. No, mate, I'm not. I'm in my 40s, and even I know that's a dead meme. Come on. Nia is one of those parkour graffiti guys that fake TikTok videos, but the first survivor for a bit that didn't just get lost in the woods, so she has that going for her. Like IKEA furniture, she's Swedish, but unlike IKEA furniture, she doesn't just fall apart with the slightest nudge. She's basically a Hot Topic kid, but she can actually skateboard. Her perks are fine, nothing amazing, and she has a pretty good skin wardrobe that would suit any flavour of edgy kid. She would play as a rogue, so she can be all sneaky-like. Kate is a twee folk songstress that definitely brings her guitar to parties. Don't bring your guitar to parties, or I'll instantly judge you to be an arsehole. She's basically just Frank Turner if Frank wasn't a weird libertarian whose dad owns half of London, although Million Dead are great. Listen to Million Dead. She has a million skins, but some of them are pretty good, and her perks are at least A tier. She was introduced with the Clown, who is a big grunty lad who throws bottles of piss about, which is a nice clash of characters, I suppose. She would, and I don't want to shock you, play as a bard. Nobody likes Adam, but I'm here to tell you that he's pretty great. A hard-working, clever guy who is the leader that Dwight can only dream of being. It's a shame the minute he got comfy in Japan, some spider entity prick whisked him away. The poor guy didn't even get a chance to see the Godzilla Hotel. Fucking spider, dark elder gods, they're always at it. He has diversion as a perk. That perk is peak, and nothing is more fun than confusing a killer by chucking a pebble about. His skins are a bit of a mixed bag, but he has some pretty decent ensembles. He would play as a ranger, I reckon. I bet a ranger could chuck a pebble fucking miles. Jane Romero is a Nepo baby, but you can forgive her for that because her mum was an arsehole. She presented an Ellen-style chat show, but if Ellen wasn't a shitbag who created an awful work environment, which makes me wonder if she ever interviewed Nicolas Cage. It'd be really odd that they wouldn't be aware of each other since they're both working in the biz. Jane upsets the Twitter incels for some reason, which is more reason to like her. She was introduced with the Plague DLC, which is either a cutting commentary on grifting TV shows, or it's just what the devs had ready at the time. Just ask the devs, I ain't doing any more research than that. Jane has Head On, which as a perk is a foundation for all bully squads, and whilst her skins are a mixed bag, the good ones are really good. I like Jane. She would play as a paladin, I reckon. She has that TV charisma to pull it off. Zarina, according to the law, is a documentarian for people that need help. which means whatever she makes will never be shown on the BBC. The fucking cowards. She is all about the self-sacrifice to protect others, which is great, but I wouldn't mind if she forgot about Ace a few times. Her perks are fine. I do enjoy the occasional red herring play as a treat, and she has some of the best skins in the game. She came with the Depthslinger update, and notes could be made about how they both want to take down the powerful corrupt, but that's for somebody better than me to write about. She would play as a cleric because she's all about using those powers to uplift others. Yui is a street racer, like those films with Vin Diesel I didn't watch, and basically kick-started a female empowerment movement in car racing, which is pretty cool. But the entity isn't about that life, so he fogged her up in the middle of an illegal car race like the dodgy police highway person. She appeared with the Oni DLC, and if I were her, I simply would have run him over. Piece of piss. Her perks are okay, nothing amazing, and her skins are either shit or great. No middle ground with Yui. She would play D&D as an artificer, so she can build herself a car. I got lazy at this point because I got tired of writing, so I asked Twitch's most positive person and part-time hat model, Alpaka Waka, his thoughts.
What class in D&D would Elodie play as? One of them. I don't know, I've never played D&D.
Which didn't help at all, so I better start writing again. Elodie investigates cults, so was probably sent away by Tom Cruise. My lawyer has told me for legal reasons that was satire about Top Gun, and only about that. Nothing to do with Scientology. She's connected to the whole Black Veil thing, which is a nice touch, and also her lore connects her to the killer with her investigating the legend of some witches of conjoined twins. Elodie has Deception, which is an underrated perk, but a fairly average set of skins. I think she would play D&D as a warlock due to the shared search for hidden knowledge. I did some research for that one. Sable is possibly the most hated survivor, and honestly I can't find a reason why. People are just angry at her, and by people I mean men. Lonely, sad men who have nobody to blame but themselves. It's a fictional character, lads. Have a day off and a shower. Anyway, Token Goth and Cemetery Walker Sable was the roommate to Michaela, and after her disappearance she went on a mission to find her. She found some girl who ripped her own eyes out and told her to not go to the cinema basement, which like anybody would, she stayed away. No, she didn't. She went into the basement and got fogged up by the entity. Her perks ain't great, and her skins are an acquired taste. They ain't for me, but I'm in my 40s, so nobody should care what I think. She would play as an ill-rigger, because that's goth as fuck, mate. Jonah is a math genius who worked for the CIA, which means he can easily count all of the democratically elected people he helped overthrow and how many bombs were dropped on some lads who were just minding their own business. He also looks like he's from Flavortown. Jonah has shit perks and shit skins and is shit. He would play as an orc because they're both responsible for killing the innocent. Felix looks like a Tory. I can't look at him without picturing him as some sort of relative of Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Felix will be first against the wall in the almost bloodless uprising. Another 1% baby looked after by his parents' weird cult of bad stuff. I get that isn't what he's about in the lore, but honestly it makes me laugh to just go all in on him. His perks ain't great and his skins are piss. Ooh, what about shirtless Felix? Not fussed, mate. He would play as a treasure hunter because he looks like one of the 1%. It's not that deep this time. Vitrio is a man at a time, the Indiana Jones of his day. He mooched about the land looking for relics to bring peace, and he teamed up with some lad called Tarhos, and probably his freeload pals as well. But after falling out about whether to brutally murder some guy, the soon-to-be knight locked Vittorio up. Big Vit scratched some pictures he remembered from the haunted cave and got dragged to the trials. This is solid lore. I like this more detailed approach linking the survivor to the killer. His lore brought more life to the fact that when the survivors die, they forget about what they were doing, which is a good catch-all explainer. But that's the reason why he doodles on himself like a magic little Wayne, to remember what he was up to before landing back at the campsite and standing up like a rugged Rory Calhoun. His perks are pretty naff, but he has some very good skins. He wouldn't play D&D because he lived that shit and gets the 1,000-yard stares whenever he sees a dungeon. Gabrielle is a space clone who was fucked off to a different galaxy to terraform it after we knackered Earth with a nuclear war. He was then attacked by a big-thighed robot who was not programmed to harm the crew, and that's the trope bingo. He ran off from little hooks and was sucked up by the entity. Not really too much more to him than that. The most generic of all space tales. Made for this is okay, but the rest of his perks are mid, and his skins are fine. Nothing great. He would play D&D as a sorcerer, I suppose, just based on everyone assuming his future tech was magic. I'm going to do Felita and Renato together because I'm coming to the end and I'm running out of steam. They are kite fighters, which sounds like the least threatening of any sentence that ends with the word fighters. They decided to bully a drone with the kites and got the kite and themselves beaten to a pissy puddle by Skull Merchant. Knowing Skull Merchant, this probably took about 4 hours. That's about it with them, to be honest. Pretty dull. Between them, they have no good perks, but they do have an undeserved amount of solid skins. They would play as a pair of wizards, but would take ages to roll because they'd be constantly high-fiving each other. Tori is default bald and Scottish. Can't think of anyone else that would relate to. She is in a cult which makes 3 cults so far: Black Veil, Black Talon, and people who think Springtrap was a good addition to the game. The cult brainwashed her, and now we have a morally dodgy survivor, which is nice. She hates podcasters though, which is something we can agree with. Her lore hints towards another big bad like the Entity, which I hope we see more of at some point. Tori's perks are pretty pish, but in a swath, Shoulder the Burden is good, and it's a bit early to judge her on her skins, but one of them makes her look like Bowie Hare from the hit podcast Dungeons and Dickheads. More on that later. She would play as a warlock for all the dark magic shenanigans. Yunjin was a working class musical prodigy that got fucked over but forced her way up the chain to become a producer and K-pop dynamo. She took a special interest in a band and they all died. Apart from one cheeky lad, or should I say, tricky lad, hey? Anyway, he got all stabby, she turned a blind eye, yada yada yada, her and the trickster got sucked up into the spider fog. Another morally grey survivor, her perks are good but not great, and she has some proper fancy skins. She would play D&D as the Barbarian. I know Bard might fit better, but given she was grabbed by the Void being all angry and wanting revenge, I think Barbarian works, and it's me doing the video, so fuck off, mate. Lastly, we have Michaela. Hipster coffee making magic person and roommate to Sable. Fucking roommate, you Twitter losers need to grow up. Well, actually, they're just friends. Yes, sure they are, mate, if you say so. Anyway, Michaela is sound as fuck, and her perks are frankly slept on hard. Seriously, all of them are so underrated by the meta dweebs. She has lots of skins, but they're mostly piss. According to the lore, some of the other survivors were wary of her, which is probably because of the stupid hat. Look, it's too hot here, and I'm half-arsing this one, okay? Give me a break. I'm sweating like a pig main who claims to have a win streak record, and for legal reasons I can't finish that joke. Michaela would be a sorcerer because magic or something. So that's the list. Do you agree? Disagree? Have some ideas for other survivors? Tell me in the comments. And whilst you're doing that, feel free to have a listen to my comedy D&D podcast, Dungeons and Dickheads. It's beloved by someone, probably. Okay, thanks, bye.